time for his presentation. But he's an engaging speaker, educator, and communication coach dedicated to helping individuals become more confident and impactful presenters. With over 30 years of experience teaching, coaching, and mentoring speakers of all levels, from students to executives, he blends his background in education, theater, and leadership development to elevate every stage presence he encounters. A member of Toastmasters International and the National Speakers Association, Douglas is also the author of College Compass, a guide to helping students find direction, a voice in their personal and professional journeys. So I just want to welcome him.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. I love the fact that you're all eating. It means you can't ask questions, so I don't have to worry about answering it. Thank you so much. Thank you to the leadership of North Central West Virginia SHRM for inviting me to come and speak to you today. It's always interesting writing your own bio. You get to put whatever you want and nobody really knows the truth. As she was reading, it said engaging speaker. I'm like, gosh, I hope I did that. So let me know at the end. I appreciate it. I want to say a couple of things about me. First of all, I am the identity doctor. The identity part we'll talk about in a minute. The doctor, I do have a PhD, which really just means that I'm really good at following systems and filling out forms. So all of you in the HR world here, that's what I really got good at. Oh, and I read a lot. And I do mean a lot. So that's it. That's the doctor part. A little bit about me. I spent 20 years as an educator. My whole life, practically, in the field of education. And so you'll notice in my presenting style, I am very instructive. I don't do it on purpose. It's just who I am. You'll notice that in the pieces of what I do. In addition, my first experiences, my earliest memories are of being on stage. I remember my youngest performance when I was this high and I carried an adorable little lamb on stage. I said no lines. My entire role was to be cute and walk over to the Mother Mary. That was my whole job. And that was where I started. But I've been doing theater my whole life. Some would say that as I'm in my classroom, I'm doing theater. Because if you've ever taught anyone, and it doesn't matter whether it's an 11-year-old or a 70-year-old, it's all theater. It's all engagement. It's all keeping them interested no matter what. And teaching is a sideshow. So you will see in a lot of my presentation style that I'm a bit theatrical, sometimes over the fact. I am using a microphone because my doctor told me that I talk too loud. The microphone is so that I talk quieter, so that I don't blare out with the speaker. It's all training. Anyway, so that's the second part of me. The third part of me is that I'm a Toastmaster. And this is not going to be an ad for Toastmasters. But there's certain things that they teach you in Toastmasters that you'll notice. Number one is Toastmasters loves the rule of 3. You will find that in everything I talk about for the next 45 minutes, it will be neatly packaged in groups of 3. I just think in 3s. So that's a piece of what I am. I also believe in tell them what you're going to tell them what you tell them, and then tell them what you told them, which you will also see in this. I mentioned that because that way if you miss something that I said, I promise you it's coming around. You got it 2 more times. 1, 2, 3. All right, so that's a little bit about me. Who am I now? The identity doctor. When I was doing my PhD, I got deep into the concept of identity. Now, I was looking at it from the perspective of teachers. As I said, I started my career in education. I taught teachers. I was really interested in understanding how teachers develop their teacher identity. So I spent a lot of time learning about identity and motivation and all of the wonderful people that are involved in that study. Specifically, I did a lot with self-efficacy, which is Albert Bandura, who talks about this idea that self-efficacy is how strongly you believe that you can do something. And the stronger you feel you can do something, the more likely you will do it. And the more likely you will persevere in challenges because you believe you can do it. So all this work in identity, working with teachers, got me to want to understand not just teachers. The reality is, in all walks of life, our identity is an enormous piece of how we walk through the world. it also, from a career perspective, if you look at folks who burn out, and you folks work in HR, I'm sure you've never heard the term burnout anywhere in any conversation you've ever had. But the reality is that burnout, oftentimes, the burnout is because the person is doing something every day that doesn't line up with who they are. So I became very focused on identity and burnout. And that's what I'd like to talk about, is identity. Hence, the identity doctrine. So, to start with a little story. Okay? You're all HR professionals. Imagine for a moment, perhaps you've experienced this. A manager walks into your office and says to you, we're making a policy change, because I know this never happens. We're making a policy change, and I need you to communicate it to everybody. Now, I am sure that they give you all of the information you need to communicate that policy change. I'm sure they don't. But you have to communicate it. And of course, that manager wants it done when? Yesterday. Right? So that's what's given to you. So, being a good HR professional you are, what do? You sit at your computer and you type out that message. And you come up with what you're going to say to the folks that need to hear it, and you're wordsmithing and crafting and taking information you don't have and putting it in a place so that hopefully people will be okay with it, and you're typing and typing, and then you click send and off it goes. And the message is away. You've done your job, your manager is happy, nice job, you did your thing. However, within minutes, you hear that old familiar ding of your email box. Ding, and all of a sudden you can't stop hearing it ding, and then your phone rings. And while you're on that call, you get 3 more lines. And all of a sudden, it looks like this. Because everybody is going, what the heck just happened? Why is this policy change? And they're freaking out. And then you're freaking out. This might just be you. So what happened in all that space? What you're noticing in the conversations with the folks that are reaching out to you is they're not upset about the information you gave them. They're upset with how it was delivered, with the communication, with somewhere within that, whether it's how clear it was, did it tell us what was going to happen next? And part of that challenge is that you didn't get all of that information, not necessarily your fault. But that's where these breakdowns often happen, is in this clarity piece. So we're going to talk about how this works. When I was preparing for this presentation, I went and looked at the SHRM principles of professional development. No, I cannot recite them all. I know there's a number of them, and I hope there's not a test, but I got 3 of them. Because they're the 3 that kind of line up. So the first is professional competency. One of the things that SHRM encourages is this idea of developing professional competency. The second, ethical leadership. The third, continuing learning. Well, as you see by my lovely Venn diagram, there's a space in the middle. And because I believe that the model that I'm working through sits right in the middle of those 3 places. That fancy graphic is the executive presence graphic for what I do. I talk about executive presence, and I have what are called the 5 C's of executive presence. So the 5 C's of executive presence, the first is clarity. And clarity is in not only what you say to others, but clarity within yourself. Do you understand what you need to be saying? Those pieces. It's talking about clarity from an internal. Is it clear when you present it? Are you getting to the point quickly? We'll talk about what that means in a minute. The second is composure. Composure is probably the biggest struggle, especially when you have a difficult message. Because when folks are coming at you like this, it is hard to maintain composure. Developing techniques for keeping composure as you are handling these situations, super important. So we'll talk about composure. The third is credibility. Credibility is how you are perceived by the folks you're speaking to. And we'll talk about what builds into that. The fourth one is connectedness. And in the HR world, let's face it, connection is all that you do. You deal with people all day long. So that connection is important. And then lastly is confidence. When you are presenting information, are you coming across as confident, and what does that mean? Now, 5 C's, there's a lot to talk about. We're not going to talk about them all today. We're going to focus on 3 of them today. The 3 that we are going to focus on are, and I need a little slide transition, it's not working. There it goes. As I said, theater guys, sometimes I'm just going to randomly do that. I might even break into song. Could happen. Anyway, the 3 we're going to talk about: clarity, composure, and credibility. Because I believe that these 3, if we build up these, the other 2 will come along. And also, if I talked about all 5, we'd be here until sometime tomorrow. So, and I'm also going to go really somewhat quick. But bonus, there is a handout I'm going to provide you with. I've given you note paper for you to take notes on if you want to. Hold on to the index card. That's for an activity that we're going to do right toward the end. But I did provide you with that. So there'll be some stuff that you get along the way. So today's agenda, and we may or may not get to everything. I was telling Kristen, this is really weird, the 2 people I'm interfacing with is Kristen and Kristen. K-squared is I'm going to use for the time being. So K-squared and I were chatting, and I said to them, I'm really good. I made a presentation. I spent 3 weeks on it. And then I get in the car, and I drive, and I have 2 uninterrupted hours of talking to myself, because I don't listen to music in the car. And then I rewrite the entire presentation in my head, which is where I'm at right now. So we're going to get some stuff. Number 1, I'm going to do an information dump. It's only going to be 10 minutes. It's going to be information through 5 rows, folks. So if you want to take notes, go ahead. But if not, everything I say is going to be on the handout at the end. So that's information dump. The second thing is I'm going to engage you in a little bit of group work. I was going to have people find folks that are not from their company, but then y'all showed up at the same time. I'm not sure where I'm going with that one. So you 6 have to find friends over here. And then lastly, if we have time, we might do a little bit of an individual coaching session. A lot of what I do is one-on-one work, and that's where I'm most at home. I don't know that we'll get to that today, so I want to make sure we get through the intro stuff, but I will provide some information on the backside. All right. So, and again, this clicker is being, there it is, interpretive dance to use the clicker. Clarity. All right, so what is clarity? There are 3 types of clarity when you are thinking about your messaging. The first, there it is. The first is internal. I want you to know that I clicked the button 4 times before you saw that. Anyway, clarity, so internal clarity. Internal clarity is in here. When you have to deliver a message, and it doesn't matter who you're delivering it to, it doesn't matter the medium under which you're delivering it. Do you have a clear picture of what you intend to communicate to whomever it is you're communicating to? Can you say it succinctly in 1 sentence? I have interfaced with the lovely HR professionals at the places that I have worked, and I don't think I've ever gotten an email that was shorter than a page and a half. And there's a lot of information in there. But the question is, when we're talking about internal clarity, is can you explain it in 1 sentence? I know there's more information because oftentimes it's policy conversations and there's a lot of words for that and legal things that you have to cover, but can you cover the overarching theme in 1 sentence? The 1 sentence, believe it or not, is what the people hearing you are going to distill it down to. You will give me an email that's a page and a half long. I will go, okay, what's the main point of this? Okay, I have to pay more for benefits. Got it. Okay. Right? So we have to know what the 1 line is. So that's the internal clarity. The next spot is message clarity. So as you're typing or speaking to the person, whatever medium you're using, is what you're saying clear? Is it understandable? And I don't mean clear in are you using good diction, although that is an important part of it, and spell check is important in those pieces, but are you putting the ideas together clearly for the people who need to hear it? That's the message clarity. The third piece is situational clarity. Are you taking the context into consideration? Are you thinking about who you're giving the message to, how they might need to hear it, what's the best way? Because let's face it, if you're writing a message from HR to folks that are direct reports for you, you're going to write that message differently than if you're writing to a C-suite executive, aren't you? And that situation makes a big difference. You have to think about that kind of clarity. So when we talk about clarity, we're talking about all three: internal, message, and situational. Now, yes, I realize that's out of focus. The question is, where does clarity break down? And what happens when clarity breaks down? The first thing that happens, and this is very common when we're giving a message verbally, and it can happen in written message too. We start to add extraneous data just in the hopes that we're making it clearer. We think that more words per square inch will solve the problem. Oh, they're not getting it. I'll just explain more and more and more and more and more, and we get, word vomit, for lack of a better word, right? So we want to be careful. If we start to feel ourselves just feeling like we have to keep explaining more and more stuff, then we're probably, that clarity is being lost, and we need to dial that back and think more about the message. So consider that as you're hearing yourself talk, or as you're writing. When you're typing an email or a letter, does all the information you're putting in there need to be in there, or are you over-explaining? Think about how we're making the message clear. Clarity is really important as we talk about our presence. One of the things I like to use, and I realize that you can't see that or read that well, but this is one of the tools I'm going to give you at the end. It's a one-message funnel. And here's what you basically do. You take the message that you intend to give, write it out, draft it out, then funnel it down. If you could only write that same message in 3 to 5 sentences, what would you write? Then funnel it again. If you could only write that message in 2 or 3 sentences, what would you write? And then, if you had to say it in just one line, what would you write? The idea of distilling the message makes you think about exactly how clear your message really is. What do you want them to walk away with at the end? So that's the clarity piece. Let's talk about composure. Composure sits squarely on emotional regulation. This is how you react as you're giving information. Now, when you're giving information via email, it's easier to maintain your composure because you can't just close the screen for a minute, walk away, scream into a pillow, and come back. However, when you're in a direct conversation, composure is much more challenged. And it comes from this idea of emotional regulation. That does not mean that you need to become a dispassionate automaton. Not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that as you are delivering messages, especially messages where you're pretty sure it's probably not going to be received as well as you'd like it to be, and HR understands more than most folks what it means to give difficult messaging. You do it more often than most. So the idea is, how do you maintain your emotional regulation? How do you not get wrapped up in the situation? And wrapped up means a whole bunch of different things, doesn't it? Sometimes when you have to deliver difficult news, you're empathizing with the person you're giving it to. You want to feel for them. You generally feel that. And you can't go to that side. The other side is when they come back at you and challenge you, you get defensive. And that doesn't help you either. Those are both tipping that scale of emotional regulation. You want to maintain, as the image suggests, this balance point. There are a couple different ways that we maintain balance point. Part of it is the pace of our speech. Sometimes when we get frustrated, when we get flustered, we talk faster and faster and faster, or you're just me and you talk fast normally. So that's the first piece, is pace. Consciously be aware of your own pace. Second, tone. Sometimes when we're explaining a difficult message, or when someone's just not quite getting it. As a parent, I find this often with my children. While not an HR matter, it is a difficult challenge. I find myself, the more my children don't get it, the more I talk to them like they're younger and younger. And eventually I'm talking to them like they're 3 years old. Are you listening to what I'm saying? That we have to be careful as we're delivering these messages and as we feel our composure attacked. We need to remember not to adopt a tone that can be perceived as really offensive. We have to be careful of that, so we maintain tone. We also have to not shout. Sometimes when the battle gets real hard, you get this temptation to just speak louder than the other person, because we all know that in an argument, whoever speaks loudest wins. That's just the rules. We have to pull that back. The third thing, pauses. Sometimes it's best to just step back for a moment. And this follows into that needing to add more words to make the message clearer. Pausing forces us to step back. The power of the pause in these conversations helps you maintain your composure, because sometimes you just need an emotional reset. But when you're really, really agitated, it's hard to find that pause place. So, how do we keep things from blowing up like that? It's tough. When you're in the situation, it's hard because you're reacting. You've gone to that place of reaction unless you've taken the time ahead of time to start analyzing yourself and figure out the places where you are most likely to have your composure challenged. And for that, I created a tool called the Pressure Pattern Audit. Again, you should not be able to read that. If you can, you're better than I am. And I created it. What this all does, this is self-study. And some of this stuff with composure, it is self. It's looking at past situations. For right now, in your own head, think about the last time you had a difficult conversation relative to your job. Could have been an hour ago, could have been days or weeks ago, but think about that situation. Think about what conditions led up to it being a challenging situation. And there's the key. Oftentimes, the stuff that challenges us is the same thing, just a different person or a different message. By knowing what tends to challenge your own composure, you can prepare ahead of time to know that that's coming. It's much easier to respond if you're already planning in your head. If 5 minutes before that meeting, you're sitting down and writing, okay, I know this message is going to be difficult. I know that this person is going to take it difficultly. We have had some challenges in the past, and I need to deal with it. I need to prepare myself. The second thing is building in structures within so that you can release and reset. Sometimes it's being able to say, if it's a phone conversation, sometimes we have to take a pause from the phone conversation. You've probably gotten to that point with someone where you know that all you're doing is shouting at each other and nobody's listening. It's being able to say in that moment, we need to step back from this a minute and come back to it. It's finding that pause. Even if it's a split second, somewhere where your brain can mentally go, and then come back. And that's, again, knowing that these things are going to happen. This pressure audit walks you through all that. You can see it blurry albeit, but it says disengage, interrupt, re-engage. When your composure is breaking, that's the key. Once your composure is on and you've lost it, you need to disengage for a moment or whatever you can squeeze in there. Then you need to interrupt the cycle. Let your body reset. Let your emotions reset. And then re-engage. It's not walk away. It's not say, I can't talk to you anymore. That's not the right way to do it. Right? It's saying, for the benefit of both of us, we need to pause for a moment, reset, and come back to this. So that's composure. And the third is credibility. As I said at the beginning, and it was on my opening slide, I have a PhD, which is a lovely piece of paper. It does not, in and of itself, make credibility. It suggests some authority. Credibility is about you doing what you say and saying what you do. And that comes in a lot of forms. We want to make sure that folks can count on us. Sometimes counting on us is, I don't know the answer to that, and I'm going to find out, and I'm going to get back to you before the end of the day today. Well, get back to them before the end of the day today. Don't call them the next day and say, sorry, couldn't get back to you, I'm calling you now. Even if it's just a quick email that says, I'm still looking at this, I didn't forget you. Credibility is that they know and trust that you're going to do what you're saying you're doing. And if you don't know information, credibility is owning that you don't know that information and that you need to find it. None of us knows everything. I certainly don't. Pretending like we do makes us less credible because they see that. Commitments. I'm going to do X. The meeting's going to start at 1. The meeting starts at 1:15. You've all been with folks who do that. I had a professor when I was in my master's work that class started at 2 o'clock. And I knew that they were going to walk in at 2:05 and instruction was going to begin at 2:15. I knew that. So guess what I started doing? Showing up at 2:15. Right? And we got used to that pattern, and then one day, he showed up on time and screamed at us because we were all late. That's a credibility challenge, right? We have to make sure that we're honoring those things. Otherwise, our credibility unravels. Credibility is one of those things. It takes a long time. Credibility isn't built instantly. Credibility is built over many, many interactions. But unfortunately, it's broken in one. So we have to protect our credibility. It's one of the reasons when I was selecting what I was going to talk about, I picked credibility because that's critical to what we do. And let's face it, in HR, you deliver some difficult messages, don't you? You deliver messages that are really hard. That credibility has to be there when you deliver those difficult messages. Because if you have credibility with the people that report to you, then when you give the difficult messages, they can trust that you will take care of them. Yes, we have to, we're monkeying with your vacation time, I get it, it's problematic, but you can trust me to do what is best for you because I have built that credibility with you over time. So protect your credibility. I would argue that if you're going to focus on 1C, start with credibility. Make sure that you are credible all the time. That's critical to what folks do. And then I have, which leader are you? And again, I was reading an article, and it was talking about the 120 zero leader versus the 70 leader. The 120 zero leader is that person, and it doesn't have to be the CEO, it can be anyone in management. The 120 leader has moments of engagement and brilliance. Perhaps in the back of your head, you can see someone in your mind. At the beginning of a project, they are gung-ho, they're there for you, they're checking in, and then like 3 days later, they're gone. The hard work is being done and they're absent. Meetings fall by the wayside. So they're really great in the 120 moments, but they're really difficult in the 0 moments. As someone who works in that environment, what is the challenge for you? Do you know whether it's going to be a 120 day or a 0 day? And that credibility is really tough. On the other side of it, it mentions, well, what if you had a leader that wasn't 100%, and I don't know that there's anybody that's 100% of the time. I am not 100% of the time, I'll own that. But if you can count on them to be 70% all of the time, they'll get most of it, they'll do what they can, they'll make up for it where they need to. Which leader are you going to work better under? The 70% all the time? Or the one where, yeah, it's great when they're having a good day. 9 times out of 10, folks are going to function better with the 70 consistent. So I would argue for you, work to be consistent, not perfect sometimes. And that's what this worksheet is all about. The left side is the 120 zero side, and it asks you to circle things that are characteristics of you. It asks you to be real honest with yourself. And that's the thing, folks, when we're talking about identity work, it starts from you need to be honest with yourself. You have to own the things that you're good at and the things that you're not good at. And this kind of form asks that. This is also something, if you need to coach a manager, you can use this. You can look at them and say, okay, let's look at, this is the feedback we're getting on your leadership style. This is what we're seeing. What does that say to you? So when I offer you these tools, they are for you to use, but they also can be used in conversation with other folks. They benefit both sides of the puzzle. All right? So that's that. Okay. Let's see. Most of you are done eating except for the brownies, which look delicious. So here is where I'm going to give you a little bit. Let me check in my time. Oh, perfect. I want you to try something. Grab the note paper, the big 8.5 by 11 sheet. Grab the note paper. For those of you who are functioning in HR right now, this will be easier. For you retired folks, you might have to dial back into your previous life, but retirement is the best gig. So here's what I want you to do. All I want you to do right now is that's what we're going to do. I'm not going to give it away. All right. Think about an HR message that you might have to give, one that you just gave or one that you might give. On the paper, write out how you would give that message to the people that need to hear it. Write it out. Just start writing. Don't write I would not suggest a policy adjustment because there's a lot of legal language there. You might want to make it a little simpler. But write a message. Make sure to write it completely. Give it all out there. Imagine you're sending an email to people who need to hear important things. Another minute or so to finish up your thoughts. This is the moment where you know that my lifetime has been spent in education. I know to give you a 1-minute warning and then talk through it. All these messages because I have no idea what I'm going to say. It's all just stuff. About 30 seconds. You have the benefit of being a teacher is that you really know how long a minute is and how long 30 seconds is. everything is timed in those ways. All right, as you're finishing up your thoughts, so if you were paying attention earlier in the lecture, what's about to happen will not come as a big surprise to you. Here's what I want you to do. Write whatever novel you just wrote, one sentence. Bonus points for less words. Bonus points for less words. He knew where he was going. He wrote one sentence.
Well, I wrote 2.
Then your job is much easier than some of the people who wrote 12. They must have been really long sentences.
I like to.
Fair point. Remember, one sentence, and challenge yourself to use as few words as possible. I probably should have mentioned in the opening, you should probably keep confidential message out of this workshopping message. So hopefully you all had your HR hats on and kept the confidential information out of your message. But is there somebody who's willing to do the following? Share the big message and the one sentence distillation? Do I have a volunteer willing to share and speak out loud in a meeting? I remind you all that you're HR professionals who speak lots. All right.
All right. So this is the big one first.
Big one first.
Okay. We'll be changing our PTO policy effective March 1st, 26. As part of this change, our maximum accrual will go from 5 weeks to 3 weeks. This change will ensure customer needs are met and scheduling simplified. To help soften the blow from this change, we will be offering higher bonuses at year end.
Okay. That's the whole message? All right, so that's the full message.
Right?
Wow, 5 mental note to all the rest of you who work with him.
Diane was like, is this true?
Wait a minute. Hold on. Now,
That's what we
you all heard the same message. Now, give us the one-liner.
Hello, our PTO policy is changing from a max of 5 weeks to 3 weeks to ensure the success of our company.
Okay, did he accurately encapsulate the full message? Would you have done it differently? Anybody hear a different way to encapsulate that in one line? I'm not saying there is a different way. So the reason I had you do this exercise is not that you wouldn't give the full message. The reality is that everything he said to the first message is information that they need. There's explanation. But within that opening message, there was what they needed to know, when it was going to happen, and then what we're going to try and do to soften the blow. You even said to help soften the blow. And the reality, what I'm suggesting to you is when we do the one-liner, even though you're going to end up talking about everything, knowing the summary point is where you lead in with. When you start the message, you start with the headline. Then you provide the other stuff to build back behind it. The point being is that for a clarity's sake, you want to know exactly what you're trying to communicate. Because if you don't know exactly what you're trying to communicate, your audience will never figure it out because you're more likely to ramble and get around to it and bury it in this place and that place. So it's that key of being able to do this message one-liner. As I said, you would never give just the one-line message. Woe betide the executive that sends an email that says, by the way, we're cutting your PTO from 5 to 3 weeks. Doug. Yikes. You never want to send that message, but you do want to have, so if you had to encapsulate the idea, it helps you to know exactly what you're trying to say. And so often, that's where clarity gets lost along the way. If we had a full half day to do this, I would walk you through exercises for composure and for credibility and technically connectedness and confidence at the same time. The reality is that you are all busy human beings and you have other places that need your attention. So this is just a very broad overview. I wanted to give you a few minutes for questions and then I have some final parting thoughts. So if you have questions, let me, is this where the clicker doesn't work? Look at this. There you go. Questions? I love it when there's no question. By the way, as a teacher, that's my favorite point because it means that no one cared. Not cared. It meant that no one was able to process everything I said, and they're like, I get it. And I'm the person that at the end of the session, somebody will look at me and go, do you have any questions? And I'm like, I will in about 3 hours when my brain has processed all this. Can I email you? And that's totally okay. That's totally okay. You'll get my contact information in a little bit. But again, this was, as I said, information through a fire hose, best laid plans. But, so to remind you, the 3 C's that we talked about today, clarity, composure, and credibility. Now, within that, you'll see grayed out that back there is a little bit more information. That's the connectedness and confidence piece. But the executive presence. Remember to keep those in mind. Think about the clarity of your message. Think about what you're doing to be more composed as you deliver, not necessarily, yes, with difficult messages, but staying composed whenever you're in conversation or sending information out. How are you maintaining that composure? And most importantly, what are you doing every day to build your credibility with the folks that you work with? So that when you have to give them difficult information, the relationship is trust, and they will walk with you on a difficult journey as opposed to oppose you on that same difficult journey. How are you using credibility? Now for the card. Grab the little index card. So, one thing I want you to do is pick one of the 3 that you're going to do deliberate work on for the next 30 days. Because the reality is I can give you things to talk about, but are you going to focus on improving your credibility? Are you going to focus on improving your composure? Are you going to focus on improving your clarity? Which of those are you going to commit to working on for the next 30 days? This card is not being turned in. As you're thinking about that, you're going to answer 4 questions. Question number 1 is, where will you use increased clarity? Is it going to be when you're in meetings, so face-to-face? Is it going to be in when you generate email or letter, things of that sort? Where are you going to use that? Number 2, what will trigger it? Triggering it meaning, when are you going to be deliberately challenged? Is there a moment, for example, if you picked composure, do you know in the back of your head that there are specific moments that trigger less composure? Or people. Without confidential information. Although you're taking this with you, so if you want to talk about Jim and receiving, then talk about Jim and receiving. I hope there isn't a Jim and receiving. Then, how will you remember to use it? Meaning, what support will you put in place to remind yourself? One of the things, for example, for clarity, is writing a sticky note on your computer that says, remember the 1-sentence headline. To remind yourself to always be thinking of that point. So what are you going to help to remind yourself? And lastly, how are you going to be accountable? Is it at the end of the week you're going to do a little bit of a journal back to yourself that says, hey, here's how I did better with clarity this week? Or are you going to have an accountability partner? Or are you going to talk to somebody here, somebody else in SHRM and say, this is what I'm working on for the next 30 days. Help me to be honest. Just text me and remind me that I'm supposed to be composed when I talk to Jim in receiving. See, there's Jim again. So think about that. Take that with you. And then on the back side is a QR code with my contact information. So you just need to scan that with your phone and you'll find me. And then, so, free stuff. So, this QR code works. It works now. What I would love for you to do, speakers thrive on feedback. We love feedback. What I would love for you to do is to go there and fill out feedback on my talking today. If you fill out the whole feedback form, you will get a couple of different things. One, you will get a PDF of all of the tools that were blurry on the right side of the screen. They will be clear, easy to read, and printable. You will also get my notes from this session. And offering to this crowd only, I just released a book yesterday called When It Counts. And it's the executive presence framework explained much more in detail. It's available, but what I did just for people here, I'm not telling anyone about it, but if you fill out the feedback, I will send you a link and you can get the ebook for free. You can get the ebook When It Counts for free if you do the feedback. So all I'm asking you to do is give me a little bit of feedback, throw me an email address. It can even be an email address that you use for dummy stuff that you don't want anybody to know about. You want to give me your junk mail email address? Have that. But give me an email address, I'll send you some stuff, and I'll send you where to go to get the ebook for free. All right? Awesome. Thank you so much, especially to those of you, many of you did, who smiled along the way. It helps me to know that I might be doing all right up here. I appreciate it. I thrive on positive feedback, don't we all? But again, I remind you, use the 5 C's, or at least the 3 of them that we talked about today. Clarity, composure, credibility. And in case you weren't QR coded out just yet, there you go. There's a few more. These are just my generic ones. This is my programs. That's me on LinkedIn. Feel free to follow me. I do a weekly newsletter. And that's just the contact me, which is the same one that you have on the flip side of your card. Again, thank you so much for having me, and I believe I can return you back to your newly appointed president. And I appreciate you. Thank you.